In this video, I'm going to give you guys my reasons why the PlayStation Vita didn't do well compared to the Nintendo 3DS in terms of sales. Now, you hear a lot of people say that the PlayStation Vita didn't do well because it came out before its time. Now, I don't believe that, just because if it did come out before its time, to me, it should have done well, but in my opinion, there's two reasons why it didn't do well. The 3DS was the first handheld gaming console with a 3D screen, and with its cameras, you were able to use augmented reality. The 3DS came with AR cards and you could play games with them, and you could see the AR thing, be like a 3D type of thing through the screen, but it wasn't anything special, but it was still cool to see. On the PlayStation Vita, you had all the specs. It had a 5-inch touchscreen OLED display, front and rear facing cameras, a stereo speaker, a rear touchpad, and a 3G connection. Based upon those specs, you would think that the 3DS wouldn't be able to compete with the PlayStation Vita in its processing power, but that's not the case. When it comes to sales, the 3DS has sold around 75 million units, and the Vita sold between 10 to 15 million units. Now, there's two reasons why the Vita didn't outsell the 3DS. When you buy a gaming console, you buy that console for the games that come out on that platform. Now, if that console doesn't have any great games for it, you're not going to buy it. How well a console does is based upon the gaming library for that console, and that was the problem with the PlayStation Vita. Sony didn't have a lot of great AAA games on the Vita. Their top 5 selling games on this system was Uncharted Golden Abyss, Black Ops Declassified, Assassin's Creed Liberation, Mortal Kombat, and Little Big Planet. Now, those aren't bad games, but I wouldn't buy the Vita just to play those games or others on that platform, especially if I can already play them on the PlayStation 4. There is backwards compatibility on the Vita, so you can play the old PSP games, but it's digital downloads only. So if you have the physical copies of these games, you won't be able to play them, and that kinda sucks. However, on the 3DS, it's a different story. Their top 5 selling games is Mario Kart 7, Pokemon X and Y, Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Sapphire, and Super Mario Bros. 2. Now, these are games that would make me buy the 3DS just to play them. Up until 2013, I didn't have a 3DS or a PlayStation Vita, and when Pokemon X and Y came out, that's when I got the 3DS. Pokemon has been one of my favorite gaming series, and I didn't want to miss out, so I got the 3DS. And of course, now that I have an extra gaming system laying around, of course I want to play different games for it, and then I got Mario Kart 7, Super Smash Bros. 3DS, 3D Land, and others. These games of course didn't look graphically great compared to the Vita, but they were fun games to play. You can take your time and you wouldn't get tired of these games. The 3DS is also backwards compatible, making this gaming library very huge for the system. With the DS library and the 3DS library, you have a total of 3,193 games. And to this day, I love playing Super Mario 64 DS, and this game came out in 2004. Now, I've never owned a PlayStation Vita, and within my friend group, none of us had one, so there was no reason for me to buy one. Plus, there were no games that motivated me to buy a PlayStation Vita. And so I'm just like, okay, like it looks cool, but I'm not gonna spend $250 just to buy a system that's gonna be sitting in the dust. If Sony said today that they're releasing a new PlayStation Portable, I definitely think it could do well with the right games at launch. The games I would want to see on there would be a new Sly Cooper game, a new Jak and Daxter game, and a new Ratchet & Clank game. In my opinion, these games would be great incentives for people to buy a new PlayStation Portable, and if Sony were to keep releasing great games for the system, then I can see the new PlayStation Portable being a successful system. When the Switch first came out, the only good games were Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart, and over time they released some amazing games in many different genres, and because of that reason, people who aren't even gamers buy the Switch. If the Switch had bad games at launch or overall, it would have died real quick, but obviously that's not the case, and over time, it's become the 3rd highest selling gaming console of all time. Also, the memory cards for the Vita was very expensive. Sony used their own memory cards, while Nintendo used the regular SD cards. For a 32GB memory card with Sony, it costs $100, which is a lot. However, with Nintendo, you can get a 32GB card for $10 at Best Buy. So over time, you'd be putting in more money to the Vita compared to any handheld system from Nintendo. Also, the price of the Vita retailed for $250, and the price of the 3DS retailed for $180. The price of the 3DS was another incentive for people to skip over the Vita. Now, of course, there's many other reasons why the PlayStation Vita didn't do well, but in my opinion, the price and the gaming library are the two main culprits. But if you have another reason, leave a comment down below. But like always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.